Welcome to the 10th episode of Unpacking Software from Chocolatey Software. Today we'll be chatting about and giving our expert opinion on the latest software news, focusing on packaging, software, deployment, and lifecycle management. Every third Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. UTC, we'll be live streaming, but we also make this available very soon afterwards as a podcast, which you can download and then listen to on your favorite podcast manager. We have another live stream on the first Thursday of each month called Product Spotlight, where we spotlight chocolatey products, discuss releases, highlight features, and walk through tutorials and demos. To ensure you get notified of all the awesome chocolatey content we create, ensure you join our community hub on Discord, subscribe to us on YouTube, and click the notification bell. Or you can follow us on Twitter or X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, and Twitch. You can find all of those links on our homepage at chocolatey.org or in the description. We want to make sure we hear from you about the content we're producing. Is it what you want to hear? We don't know. Do you have ideas about what you'd like? Have your say at ch0.co/stream survey. My name is Stephen Valdinger. I'm the Customer Solutions Manager here at Chocolatey Software, and I'm joined today by Gary Ewan Park, our Principal Engineer, and our Senior Solutions Engineer, James Ruskin. Gary and James, welcome to the stream.
Hey, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. All right, so let's dive right into it, shall we? The first thing I think that we're going to talk about is some news from Microsoft, actually, about Windows 10 and their for the first time ever, actually. So Windows 10 is now end of life, but they are offering to consumers for a fee of $30 extended security updates. Now, this is something they have traditionally done for enterprise customers in the past. If they, have a version of Windows Server or something like that that's end of life, but they still need some security patches to give them time to upgrade to a new release of Windows Server for whatever reason. That's been a thing for a lot of years, but this is the first time that Microsoft has done this for the consumer, and I actually think this is pretty cool. I think it's a good idea. $30 is it's not a lot of money, and it's a lot less than buying a new OS, right? And there's a lot that comes with upgrading to Windows 11 as well in terms of hardware and things like that. So, giving end users, consumers, the ability to delay that upgrade with security updates is really helpful. And I know personally myself, I know a lot of people that run small businesses that don't necessarily have a pro version of Windows. They just, they go to Staples, they buy a machine, and they have a piece of software that they run on it. And that piece of software may not work on Windows 11 right now, but there's a new version coming. So this is going to give even those small home users, as small business owners and things like that, with one or two machines, the ability to have a little bit of runway as well, and that's really cool.
To clarify what you mean there by comes with hardware, you mean comes with some specific hardware requirements?
Sure. Yeah.
Which may not, you may not have. You may have been offered a free upgrade to Windows 11, but maybe the computer's not got TPM2 or something along those lines. Yeah.
Exactly. And there are other reasons there too. And they're kind of the same exact reasons that we deal with in the enterprise as well. Software is really expensive to upgrade. So you want to get as much out of it as you can. Or, there's a particular hardware interface that something uses that doesn't work on the new OS yet, but a new firmware is coming, an update to that piece of hardware is coming, whatever the reason is, but you still need more time. So you want those security updates for, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it takes. That's great that they've been offering that to the enterprises for a really long time, and it makes sense that they do that.
I mean, heck, after XP and 7, like having the option to extend your patching is fantastic because so many systems went long term without patches, without.
And I know back when I was in the manufacturing space, we had machines that we had a completely separate, segregated network without the internet and everything for this very reason. Like they were multi-million-dollar machines to replace, but they ran an embedded version of Windows NT. They were ancient machines, but it was just so cost prohibitive to replace them. That's still going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of things with hardware control, medical stuff, you just air gap it and you say, well, there's our mitigation. But yeah, it's good to offer this to consumers. Although I will say, I drilled through the blog post. I still haven't managed to find where exactly you're going to be able to purchase this and how it's going to apply. I'm going to assume
I
Windows
wasn't
Store,
able to find that either.
We'll
I didn't see that either, and I'm not sure. And they just announced it, so maybe that news is coming, right? Maybe they'll.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very small part of a larger blog post around how you should definitely upgrade to Windows 11. But by the way, if you don't want to, then here's a little thing, which is nice.
Yeah. So another thing that we found, and I thought this was pretty interesting, that VMware is shifting their work. So VMware Workstation specifically, that product is shifting from proprietary code to using an upstream code base of KVM. That's a pretty big change.
Yeah, I mean, great news for KVM. I mean, that's a real vote of support there. Yeah, I mean, it's changing that for Linux. I mean, both, I think, Windows and macOS, it's been pointed out, are already using the underlying systems from those systems instead of custom workstation code. And this is only to do the emulation of the CPU, if I remember correctly. So they've still got all the virtual devices and stuff to make their kind of magic source, meaning it's worth buying. Although saying worth buying for personal use, it's free now. I think we talked about that previously, but it is actually free now.
Yes, yeah, I believe. And Gary, do you use VMware on? Because you're now on Windows, correct? So have you switched from Fusion to Workstation?
Almost. Okay. I'm still on VMware Fusion at the minute. But I moved to a Windows PC soon, so I'll be switching to VMware Workstation. But it's regardless. I mean, prior to this announcement, I think the license allowed you to use either or. It was the same license that covered both editions. But now VMware products for the, I guess, how would you call it? Like the smaller scale user, so not the ESXi or the vSphere. You're just using hypervisor on your local machine. Then it's completely free. So that's a good deal, to be honest.
It is. It is. I think so. Now, like for users like us here at Chocolatey, we still have to purchase a license because technically we're not using it for personal use. We're using it to run Windows workloads that we develop our products on, right? So it's probably good that we have a license.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say there's no technically there. That's definitely we're commercial.
Yeah. I would definitely say it's commercial use, but still, you're absolutely right. As a home user, I really, really, really like as a professional user, I've really, really liked using the VMware products on my workstation to run a VM for whatever reason, to try something out, whatever. To be able to do that at home now for free is super great.
So just to clarify that, I'm rereading the blog post to make sure that I didn't imagine it. But no, the desktop hypervisor product will be available for free to everyone. Commercial, educational,
take it all back. I'm sorry.
So literally, it's everyone. So we'll be able to take advantage of that as well.
That's even better then. maybe they're just making so much money off the VMware subscriptions now that Broadcom bought it that they're throwing us a bone.
I've seen a lot of cynical interpretations of this, and I'm slightly on board because still got the X factor from tearing down ESXi free. We'll see.
So the next story in the list here, this one's a little bit comical, to be honest. And Gary, you've got a lot of, well, not a ton of experience, but you've got some experience in this space. So it looks like Meta has been looking to use nuclear in their data centers, but they're having a problem because of bees. Like,
yeah, so this one
displace them, or
so this is an ongoing story in terms of what we've been speaking about here on the Unpacking Software, because Meta is not the first company to decide that having nuclear power to generate and run their AI computing needs. So there was Microsoft before, there was Google. Everyone's getting on this idea that they're going to use nuclear power stations to have the ability to say they're offsetting the carbon emissions and all that sort of stuff by having emission-free nuclear power to run this. And Meta were jumping on this, and they were working with a company to provide that functionality. And then, unfortunately, they've had to take a step back on that because there is a protected species of bees, or bee, rather, that has taken up residence within the power station that they were looking to make use of. Because when all these power stations got switched off, some other company or government agency decided that they were going to reuse that existing buildings to house different bee colonies, if that's the right word. So they're either going to have to move them or to somewhere else, or find another nuclear power station to have the power generation for their AI needs. So it's an interesting story. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, I know James probably definitely has. It's the film Man Against Bee, Rowan Atkinson. It rung true with this. It's Meta against the bees. I can see a film coming out where they have some representative from Meta coming along to take and distract all the bees and allow them to have their nuclear fun. But yeah, I'm still torn on this whole concept of using, because of the needs of these AI models and the sheer power consumption that's involved. Using nuclear power is not necessarily a bad way of doing it. It's a cleaner way of doing it, but it would only take one more thing to go wrong, and then we have other issues like we've had in the past. So yeah, I'm torn between the way that it's being done. So call me an AI cynic if you will, but that's where I'm at. But yeah, it was an interesting story that a small flying insect has put a scupper on Meta's plans.
This is just one instance of something like that, causing an issue, and not so much an issue, just something you have to be concerned about, right? Like that there are other areas where we are trying to build something, but that's going to displace this native species of whatever, and you have to work around it. And we've come up over the years with some pretty interesting solutions to this problem, right? In terms of like natural bridges and stuff over highways to allow like deer and stuff to cross highways, like that's all cool how we're able to like work around the problem and do things like that. And I'm trying to stall and get us away from the bee thing so that James doesn't have an opportunity to tell a bee joke.
I was just going to say, just jokingly, I've got the one mental image, which is just a nuclear power plant sized thing beehive.
Yeah, so I think we're just going to slide swiftly on into some chocolatey news.
Well, I was just going to point out the comment from Joe on the chat there. It does bring a new meaning to the word debugging. I thought that was quite funny.
That's very clever.
If you saw me break down a tiny bit a second ago, that was
applaud on that one. Thank you.
That a well-timed pun indeed.
But no, yeah. So I'll let you get back to the chocolatey news, Stevie.
Yeah. So some interesting chocolatey news of late. The last, I think it was the last live stream we did where we talked about template packages. We've released a blog post to go with it. But yeah, if you would not mind recapping that stream for us, Gary, and tell us why templates are awesome and why people should use them. I would very much appreciate it, because I think templates are one of the best things in Chocolatey, in my opinion. They're super, super helpful, super powerful things.
Yeah, so I mean, so this blog post was a follow-up to the next episode in the Back to Basics series of videos that we've been doing. So this one was about template packages, as you mentioned. So template packages it's a mechanism that can be used for automating the package creation process. So the example that we spoke about on the live stream was that folks at Walmart, there was a blog post that they did that's available on our blog as well, which basically illustrated how they could use a template package to streamline the package creation process that they use for their internal applications within Walmart. So it's a prime use case for what we were trying to show. And on the stream, we went through what is a template package. We went into the innards of it, where they live on disk once they're installed, how you can update them, how you can maintain them, and how you can make use of them. So in a reasonably newish version of Chocolatey CLI, we added the Choco template command, and illustrated how that can be used to list out and find out what parameters can be passed in to a template package using the Choco new command. So as you say, it's one of those kind of hidden gems in terms of Chocolatey CLI to help the repeated creation of packages, especially for those internal applications that you might be using. So rather than having to use kind of the default template that Chocolatey CLI comes with, and having to delete a bunch of the boilerplate code that is included within that template, you can absolutely create your own template, manage that just as a standard Chocolatey package, making sure that everyone in the organization has got access to it. So yeah, it's one of those. It's fun to kind of dive into it and kind of show people how it all works. But the best part about it, and this comes to the extension packages that we spoke about in the previous episode, is that they are all just Chocolatey packages. So you create them, you version them, you distribute them in the standard way that you would do any other package that you created. It just so happens that it's adding functionality to Chocolatey CLI itself. Mm-hmm. So yeah, go back and watch it if you're interested, and let us know if you've got any questions.
Yeah, I love template packages, and you can actually share template packages as well. If you create a package for this templates, we accept template packages on the Chocolatey community repository. So if you've got one that's particularly helpful for a use case that you want to give back to the community, you're using it internally, your organization, whatever, by all means, publish it. There are several template packages available on the Chocolatey community repository already that are super helpful. So yeah, that's.
I know.
There's actually there's a GitHub repository as well in the Chocolatey community organization that you could actually use to, if you wanted to, you could actually use that repository to store the source files for the package as well. That's where we have started moving some of the community-driven Chocolatey packages or Chocolatey template packages too. So yeah, if as you say, if you've got a common use case that you've created a template package for, by all means, consider creating an issue and having a discussion about getting that moved into that repository, and it can be managed centrally from there.
I see
James
James
just put the link.
Put the link in the chat. Yeah, great. Saves me having to go look it up while we're talking through other things. Awesome. So also, Gary, we just released a new version of Chocolatey, 2.4.0. What all went into that release? I don't believe it was a super big release, but there were some interesting changes that did go into the 2.4.0 release of Chocolatey.
Yeah, it was one of those releases that we've. It's not got the. It wasn't the big release where we've added a bunch of new functionality, but there was some important things in this release. The couple. I'm not going to call them all out because we did. I think we did an episode where we went through all of these things. Or no, have we done that yet? No, we haven't done a product spotlight on this.
We haven't done it yet.
So maybe I will take an opportunity. I was going to say I've been through all of this already, but I haven't. But I'm not going to go through everything that's in this list because we simply don't have time in this context. But a couple of the big ones would be. There was a long-standing bug that we addressed, and that was for tab completions within PowerShell. Now, I'm not a PowerShell person, but when I say PowerShell now, what I'm actually talking about is PowerShell Core, correct? PowerShell Peeps? Or is that right or wrong? I never know what the right way. But for PowerShell 7.4 and above, tab completion was broken. Worked perfectly fine in Windows PowerShell, but in PowerShell Core, it was broken. So there was a PR created by a community member that we took and got merged in and got that sorted out. There was a couple of kind of related issues in and around dependency resolution and problems with regard to it actually incorrectly downgrading a package while it was upgrading another package. So we did some digging into that to figure out what was going on. So that was Corey and Rain that was digging into that, and the team to kind of figure out what was going on there. The other one that I wanted to call out was we did a look at a couple of the setup PowerShell scripts that we use when we're installing Chocolatey, and we found that there was some historical code, and I mean a historical code that we said that's been around there for too long. It was still doing a migration from what was the C Chocolatey folder, like at the root of the C drive. We used to install Chocolatey 2, and then we transitioned to the C program data Chocolatey folder. So that migration code was still in there, and it's like, that's not been there for years. Let's move it. So we took an opportunity to kind of tidy up some of that. And along with that, there was another one, which was we deprecated a PowerShell helper module. A PowerShell helper function that we have, which was the install Chocolatey pin taskbar item. It's a little bit of a mouthful for you there. What that was all about was literally during the installation of a Chocolatey package, you might want to pin a taskbar item. That taskbar item might be to link to the application that's just been installed or something else. Going forward with Windows don't want you to create or automate the creation of those taskbar items. So with that in mind, we're deprecating in this release, and it will be removed in a future release of Chocolatey. So if you have got packages that are using it or trying to use it, that won't be there going forward. What we have spoken about is, though, putting a stub of that method into the compatibilities extension package, so that older packages will continue to work by having a stub of that PowerShell function available.
I was going to ask, would we have the function in the core? Because normally we have a function that does the thing in the compatibility extension.
So what we've historically done is we've marked it as deprecated, so that and allowed people to know that it's coming down the pipe. We've documented where it's happened, and then ultimately when we have removed it in what will be a major version of Chocolatey, we tend to slot those into the compatibilities extension package, so there's at least a path going forward. Means that we don't have to keep essentially dead code lying around in Chocolatey CLI itself. but we can still say, well, the workaround would be to install this extension package once. You only have to install it once. You might already have it installed, and therefore older packages will continue to work. We've done that before for the likes of the write Chocolatey error and write Chocolatey warning. Those were deprecated a long time ago. Those still exist in the compatibility extension, so that that older packages continue to work without needing to get updated. So, like I said, that deprecation is still. It has been deprecated in this release. The actual removal of it is still a fair ways off, so it's not going to go away anytime soon. But it was again one of the things that we chose to add in here. So there's a bunch of information in the release notes. I don't know if James can grab the link to the release notes and get that into the chat. That would be super. So yeah, there's a few other things on there, but yeah, it was one of these. There was a few of these items were lining up as PRs as they do, and we took the opportunity to rattle through them and get them shipped as the 2.4.0. As always happens. We found something almost immediately after we shipped this 2.4.0, so there is a 2.4.1 in the pipeline just now. A bug was identified with regard to configured sources, specifically around authenticated sources. So there's a bug around that, so that'll be shipping in 2.4.1. But that we've deemed that as a security-related bug, so that will be getting backported to the 1.x release of Chocolatey CLI as well. So that'll be going out as 1.4.1.
Awesome. Good stuff coming in Chocolatey, as always. Moving over to some soft, since we're talking about Chocolatey and developing software, trusted signing. So it looks like it's now, this is a Microsoft thing. Microsoft Trusted Signing. It's now open for individual developers in a public preview. Now, this is something that I know exactly nothing about. I don't do code signing stuff like ever because I don't develop software that needs code signed. That's not my circus, not my monkeys around here, right? Like I support it and I'm like involved in it, but when it actually comes time to put the
signatures on code,
your nose, put your nose to the grindstone and get it done is what I'm trying to say. I don't do that. So this sounds pretty cool for open source developers and open source software. But again, I know nothing about it, so I'm going to defer to the experts, which are Gary and yourself, James, to chat us through what this means.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that excites me a lot. I haven't actually tried it out yet. I've had it on my list to do so because I've always wanted to basically sign my personal PowerShell modules and scripts, and Gary obviously would sign anything but those things. But the cost of a code signing certificate for years has been prohibitively awful. Like you'd look as somebody who's kind of hobbyist, you'd look at it and be like, you know what? I don't have a couple £100 laying around.
As I say, there's several $100, if not more, are they not, for a proper code signing cert? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. There are various ways you can kind of, programs you can be in to get a free one. I always kind of thought, that's the way to go. Because, again, a couple £100 for a year where realistically, I don't think anybody cares if they're running something I've signed. But these days with stuff like Windows Defender being more tricky about XEs that have just come out and haven't been signed and don't have a nice path of trust back to somebody, it makes more sense that you can sign stuff, and that's good. So it's really nice that the cost is kind of decreasing. There is still a cost. I think it's at a minimum $10 a month or $9.99. And it's probably not going to be. You say it's going to be great for the open source crowd, but I imagine anybody who's staunchly anti-Microsoft and big into the FOSS crowd is going to be like, no, I wouldn't use those. But maybe it'll win them over. It does need a bunch of stuff. Like you need, I think, government issued ID and a selfie. And I've made a note here that I hated that the phrase selfie was in a blog post from Microsoft. I might be getting old, who knows? And maybe some additional steps if that ID wasn't enough. I think it's cool. I'd love it from a personal standpoint. I've always, in my last job at least, we signed everything we were doing, and in this job we also signed lots of things. But with some of the changes made to the bigger code signing certificates, I think something like this, where hopefully there's unlimited signing available, super cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat stuff. I'm interested to know what the difference is between this and something like SigStore. Right? Because SigStore is backed by Google and a whole bunch of other companies.
Yeah, that was the Let's Encrypt
for a
equivalent.
while. Yeah, it's kind of Let's Encrypt-ish.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the differences are.
Felt like that. Yeah, that one I was excited by, but at the time wasn't far along enough that I could touch it or use it or would get any use out of it. So
yeah, I know that. For example, PowerShell modules, signing a PowerShell module, you cannot, or at least you couldn't the last I looked at it, with SigStore sign one of those. It wasn't supported. It just didn't work. I don't think the tooling existed that would allow that to work because of how you have to sign code in PowerShell. It's been quite a while since I've looked into it, so I don't know if that's changed on the SigStore side or if that's even possible with this trusted signing stuff.
That's fair.
It's in public preview as well. So for PowerShell module authors, I don't know if we have an answer yet, or code signing certs or.
Yeah, I will say that I would be really disappointed if this Microsoft-led product doesn't support signing PowerShell scripts. I haven't seen that.
I'd be disappointed, but I also wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but I was trying not to say that bit.
yeah, we'll see. An application is not a PowerShell module, so where are they going to put the effort first?
How do you, Gary?
Especially in a public preview, right?
Yeah.
In a public preview, they're probably going to go for the thing that's going to be the most popular first. And the most popular thing is probably going to be signing an executable or an application. So we'll see.
So as a GitHub star, Gary, have you signed everything you've ever published, or have you pretty much said?
So it's an interesting one. So purely from an open source perspective, I mean, as you kind of mentioned, the cost has historically been prohibitive to the point that as an open source person, it wasn't worth the effort. So in more recent times, for example, the likes of the Cake project that I'm involved with, as part of the .NET Foundation, we got access to the .NET Foundation's Authenticator certificate, and they had infrastructure to allow signing of the artifacts through their system. So it is something that I've been more aware of on the open source side, but even that, as you said, that was because we had access to it. Some of the other ones, like as an MVP, if you were an MVP or are an MVP, you could get a DigiCert. That was one of the benefits that you get from the MSDN from the MVP program. But again, I was always hesitant about doing things like that because, well, if I'm an MVP now, but what happens when I'm not an MVP? I've started signing, now I need to keep signing, and then I'm then on the hook for buying that. So something like this that has kind of a you know exactly how much it's going to pay. It is an entry level cost. The only thing to be aware of in this system is that there is an upper number. You get a quote of how many signatures that you can do as part of that $9.99. It's 5,000 signatures, so you have to be doing a lot
a month.
But say that again.
A month.
A month, yeah. So it's 5,000 a month.
Yeah.
The issue there is that if you're then signing everything, then that if you're doing multiple builds on branches, you can quite quickly ratchet through all of those signatures quite quickly.
Especially
Ask us how we might know that, because we might have done.
I was going to say, didn't we
internal system that we had?
My very pointed comment a minute ago.
So it's one of the things that you kind of tread carefully as you're going into it. If you're depending on what you're speaking about PowerShell modules, if you are bringing all of your PS1 files into a single script, then ultimately it's one signature that you are looking for every time you do a build. So it's not too terrible, but it's just something you can be keeping in mind. But no, it's one of these systems. I think this could be quite quickly added into some sort of CI/CD pipeline and just having that generating the final signed artifacts on your project. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this takes off. Yeah. Interesting. Keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I really hope it does take off and doesn't, go anywhere. I think it's really good for the community at large. So speaking of open source software, Notepad++ has turned 21 years old. I did not realize
most of the
that
states.
Notepad++ is now 21 years old. I've been using Notepad++ my entire IT career. So I've been doing this 20 years, 19 years. I've been doing this a long time, and Notepad++ has been around the entire time I've been doing it. And I love Notepad++. There have been others that have come out after it and have competed with it. And, VS Code has kind of taken over the world at this point. And that's fine. But for some things, I still will go back to Notepad++ every single time. It's a great little editor. I love it for tailing logs. That, for example, I love that feature in Notepad++. It's super simple. It's very lightweight. It works, and it's awesome. I really, really, really like it.
Logan says he's been using it for longer than he has memory, which is
yeah. It's one of those things that we were literally just speaking about this in the development team today. Not about Notepad++, but it was about KDiff3, right? Random diffing tool, merging tool. It's as old as the hills. It's maybe as old as Notepad++. I don't know, but I have a level of familiarity with that application to the point that it's my default for doing stuff. And it's the exact same thing with Notepad++. There are newer applications that do the same, if not more. But for the things that I want to do, which is maybe just quickly opening up a folder of files or searching through it or doing a regex search and replace, Notepad++ would be my go-to as well, I have to say. So you're looking at me funny, James, as if I said
I was just like, I've never opened a folder full of files in Notepad++.
Well, so the way that I tend to do it is if I've got maybe I said it differently.
Yeah,
so if I've got a folder of files that I want to open,
right, you'll
I
go through
just
them
select them all and drag them into Notepad++, and they're there.
Yep.
But you have, so in a newer version of Notepad++, it is now possible to open up a folder of files within Notepad++ as well. But depending on what I'm doing, like Chocolatey log folder as an example, I would just in Windows Explorer select them all and then drag them in, and they're there. Right? That's just how it's always worked for me.
I think I'm just nerd sniped.
But there's it's the comfort level that there is with applications like Notepad++. But then it was Steph on the team that was asking, is there not a better merge tool than KDiff3? I'm like, what? You don't need a better tool. It's the one. And she's like, it looks like it was built in 1995. I'm like, you're probably right. It probably was built in 1995, Steph, because it's got a certain look and a feel. But for me, as the old developer on the team, it's the one. It's my go-to. So it's one of these. Yeah,
it feels like home, right?
It's great to see it being around for that long and continuing to be used. So.
The current version is from 2014, which is always a good sign. That's a solid decade old, and can't see immediately made first in. 2003. Oh no, older versions. Goodness me. Anyway, lots of versions.
It still works. It's got the ABC buttons. That's all you need. It's as easy as ABC. It's fine.
So, in some Linux news, it looks like Manjaro Linux is going to enable telemetry by default. Now, I'm not a super big fan of telemetry, but I also understand why you would want the telemetry as well. So, James, what What do you think about?
I mean, yeah, I completely agree with you there. Chocolatey employees, as a rule, have strong opinions around telemetry. We've got a company stance on it. Rob's written up posts on it. Posts on GitHub, in fact. But I think we'd all agree that in an open source world, and even in a non-open source world, it would be quite nice to have information on what our customers are using, even so we can just say, oh, okay, we're prioritizing this correctly. We don't need to be working on Windows Server 2025 compatibility right now. Literally no one of our customers are using it for that, or not. So I understand the drive towards that, and I can absolutely respect the way they've done it. They've put up a big forum post. They've published the published on GitHub the Python script they're using to generate the data. They've got a nice dry run functionality, so you can go and see exactly what data is going to get done. However, this is all the precursor. They're going to theoretically, I think, basically ship this out as a service that will get installed onto Manjaro installs, and folk will, essentially have not opted in. That's not the right phrase at all. But yeah, I didn't see much of a plan for opting out or being able to say, hey, I don't want to do this.
Don't want it.
Which, gives a little bit of a bad taste in the mouth.
Yeah, that to me feels a little bit icky. If you're going to enable it by default, at least give me some mechanism to turn it off.
Yeah. I was kind of fascinated by some of the data they're collecting, though, as well. They've got a lot of the standard hardware stuff. They go through and check out what you're doing in terms of drive space. If you've got a Windows partition, I was interested by that, because I was like, okay, that's interesting data that I wouldn't have expected, but makes perfect sense. What packages you've got installed and what sources you've got configured for that. All interesting stuff. I'm like, ooh, yeah, that sounds like fun information. But again, without being able to opt into it, I'm just less enjoying it.
So there was, I don't know if you read that, there was a follow-up post about whether the tool should be opt-in or opt-out by default. And there was a poll on that blog post that said, what do you want? Do you want data sharing to be enabled by default? Do you want to be manually enable data sharing via some sort of opt-in mechanism?
Yeah.
So of the 178 respondents, 136 said they wanted it to be opt-in, while only a much smaller majority, 34, said it would be fine for it to be on by default. So
I saw a lot of positive feedback in the thread that I was reading, but I think a lot of it was the people who were interested in this and probably had already been given a heads up, and consequently it was substantially biased.
So the way that first thread kind of stopped was, we're not going to do anything with this tool just now. We'll wait and see and look through all the comments and basically hedge on what it was actually going to do. But no, it was, on one hand, it was like, it's open source. You can see what it's doing, but they're also being transparent about what they're trying to bring to the table. So it was interesting to see it from that point of view as well.
I like the process more than the outcome, but it sounds like the outcome is also as good as it can be.
It seems like they're definitely from what I could see, they're definitely taking on the feedback and looking to do the right thing. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. But I'm also not a Manjaro Linux user, so I can't really speak to that either. So
I've never used it once either. And there is a good comment in the chat that says they think it's going to be shipped as a systemd service, and those can be disabled. So
but presumably
there
wouldn't come disabled by default.
way. There is presumably a way that you'll be able to not have this telemetry running by just disabling that service. But that makes me wonder that if there's a system update to Manjaro itself, if that system update doesn't overwrite that service being disabled and turns it back on again, which can happen. So in some miscellaneous news, this one's, I thought it was a little comical. Russia has fined Google more money than there is in the entire world. What? Why?
So I read this news article and I dug into some of it, and I'll be honest, I don't fully understand what's going on. What I do know is
I don't either.
A Russian court has fined Google for 2 undecillion rubles. I don't know if that's pronounced correctly. I don't even care. It is a number 2 followed by 36 zeros, which is a lot of zeros. It's too many for my calculator. You wouldn't get all of those in my calculator. It's as simple as that, right? And it's for restricting Russian state media channels on YouTube. It was all to do with around news about things that have been going on in Russia lately, and it's been an ongoing thing that's started.
Yep, racking it up.
Yeah, it started off at like a smaller number, but it's been escalating since 2020. But the main takeaway from this article is that that is more money than the world's total GDP, which is estimated at only a much more easier to pronounce number, which is 110 trillion. And yet they're trying to get, what did I say it was? 2 undecillion rubles.
I'm going to say it's undecillion. Yeah.
A good lesson in compound interest, I guess. You know, got a plus side here.
Possibly. I mean, I can only assume that there's some sort of payment plan involved in that fine. If it were
we'll take everything forevermore, thank you.
So, but I don't know. I also don't know what the conversion rate between a ruble and a dollar is currently. I mean, that might be 1 undecillion rubles to a dollar. I don't know.
I really don't know.
But
I find it particularly interesting just because I think, if I remember correctly, the Google corporation in Russia was bankrupt, or just got closed down around the same time, probably for the reason that then they couldn't get taken out of the equation like this. So it's really interesting from a legal standpoint, but also just a bit of a posturing thing, I guess. Just to any publicity is good publicity, I guess. But
so
I thought it was interesting.
Lawyers, solicitors are probably making money out of this debacle. Let's put it that way. So Chris is confirming it's 100 rubles to 0.99 cents in US dollars. So it still doesn't take. There's still a lot of zeros involved in that. If you were to take the exchange rate,
it's still 100 to 1. That's still a lot of money.
So, but yeah, solicitors are getting some money in this, and
well, it's an interesting one. I mean, would you turn up to court for that? If somebody just said, you definitely owe me this money, would you turn up to court?
I'd rock up in my shorts and t-shirts. Yes.
Good luck.
I'm not taking it very seriously. Yes.
Yeah, very fair.
You can come at me for that amount of money, but you ain't getting it because I'm not getting it. So
I thought it was interesting that the entire world's GDP was only $110 trillion. To me, that number seemed low.
I agree. I agree.
It puts the value of companies like Twitter, X, and the US military budget into some weird shade,
right?
I guess.
Well, Apple is one company in the US and it's worth $1 trillion.
Yeah.
That's just one company in one country in the entire world.
Yeah. Although I guess GDP versus net worth is.
Well, sure. It's a different metric, but still,
it does put a bit of a.
It just seems low.
Comparison.
It's a crazy high number. That's a lot of freaking money, but it still seems low in the grand global scheme of things. So another interesting thing, and I think people were actually, I know quite a few people were more than a little miffed at this. Windows Server.
Oh, yeah.
Started to upgrade it. So like Windows Server 2022 was all of a sudden magically upgrading itself to Server 2025 on folks. I think via Windows Update. This sounds like a problem.
Yes. I mean, you leave work one day, everything's running fine, and then you come in and Windows updates have been applied, and you've now got a new operating system
greeting you.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an interesting one in the sense that there did seem to be a couple of things had to get lined up in order for this to happen. It wasn't just a straight Windows update. That you had to have some sort of system around it that was attempting to keep your machine up to date periodically. There was some pushback that if this was going to happen, that maybe right before the installation was started, there was a prompt that says, "Do you actually want to do this, and do you want to accept the new license that comes with it?"
Do you have a license, by the
As
by?
opposed to doing the installation and then prompting you with the license to then being in a position you can't back it out. So there was definitely some catalog of things that had to happen in order for this to happen. But the fact that it could happen through a mechanism that's meant to be purely for security related updates or small feature updates, as opposed to an entire operating system update. I mean, again, I might be old school, but I would buy the CDs, or the CDs would be ordered from wherever, and you would walk up to the machine that you're updating. You know what I mean? That's how operating systems are updated or installed, not over the air,
not willy-nilly.
So, but yeah, it was interesting to see that there was very little acknowledgement that this was a problem, or this was the direction that they were going. But it has been said that Microsoft have pulled the update now, so it's not going to happen again. But does that mean it's coming back? Who knows? I mean, on one hand, they've got, you can keep paying for Windows 10 and we won't update you, but then they're forcing Windows Server, or maybe force is maybe a strong word, but here's a new server operating system that you're going to get through a Windows update. So
I guess my most charitable interpretation is maybe we just got a really nice peek at how they're testing upgrade procedures internally. But possibly. That's a really charitable interpretation with absolutely nothing to back it up. So,
but I mean, I didn't see in the article if there was any sort of major problems that came from this. If it was a smooth upgrade path and things just worked, then as you say, it's a nice indication of how things can work in jumping an operating system version. But I can only assume that you would prefer that you've been through some sort of testing process to make sure all of your subsidiary systems continue to work with this new operating system in place. So something went wrong somewhere that caused this update to be mismarked as a straight Windows update as opposed to an operating system update.
Gave me a good shiver. I was glad I wasn't running any long-term big servers.
Kind of been a year for big I mean, first the CloudStrike thing, and then all of a sudden you've got all your servers upgraded in 2025. It's like, man, can we just get to Christmas, please, so we can
I was glad to see that it seemed to be that it was only if you had a specifically a third-party system that was attempting to apply the patches. That made me feel slightly better, because my goodness, can you imagine that if that was there?
What's the rollback? Do you roll back? Do you roll everyone back at that point, or
it may not
have to give them all licenses that was a free virtue
to an unreleased system, nonetheless?
Yeah, how does that even work? I mean,
pretty nightmarish. But I guess it's a real story to promote the idea of doing canary testing and just upgrading one small environment and then push. Except if it was a security patch. Horrible thoughts. Sorry.
All good. Switching gears to pick on Apple for a little bit, it looks like the EU Commission has found that Apple is potentially breaking some geo-blocking regulations in terms of installing apps from their app store, using their podcast thing, etc., and that you can't, or they change the interface of the app depending on where you're using the application, and that's technically illegal in the EU, just because the EU, they're all member states, right? So if you're in Germany and you go to Austria, like, you're still in the EU. It's illegal for them to geo-block and make some application that you've installed while you were in Germany and you travel on vacation or holiday or whatever to Austria, and the app's different, or the app doesn't work while you're there. That's illegal, according to geofencing laws in the EU. And this is not the first time that Apple has kind of been beat up by EU laws such as this. They kind of got their hand forced early to switch all their devices to USB-C was another reason, or was another more recent thing that happened. So, so far they haven't responded. They've got, I can't remember exactly. It's sometime coming up here soon that they have to respond to the complaint. Let me see if I can find the date. It's here this month that they can address it. It's exactly 1 month. They have 1 month to respond to it. Now this article that came out, it doesn't have a published date on it that I can see. So I'm not sure when this was published or when this came out. So I don't know exactly when their month is up. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure.
With that and how that changes.
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting one. There's a lot of potential for things being different across different in different areas. I genuinely do wonder how they're squaring this sort of thing with the various apps I'm still confused. The apps they haven't released in various places because of gambling regulations, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a curiosity.
Yeah. Another interesting bit of news, and one that I didn't realize. Let's Encrypt is 10 years old now.
Yeah, back on the signing thing.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Let's Encrypt has been around for that long. I use Let's Encrypt all the time. That is one I do use all the time for generating certificates, for testing a whole bunch of things, and production stuff as well. Of course, is pretty.
Yeah,
pretty cool. I know you use it, don't you, James?
Oh, heck yeah, all the time. Just to run it down for anybody who's not familiar, Let's Encrypt is a small non-profit organization, or rather, they've got a founding organization, but they are an organization that's aiming to promote the use of HTTPS in the service of privacy and just general security around the web. And yeah, as Stevie says, they allow you to basically create your own certificates for domain signing. So, stuff like authenticating websites and services and the like, rather than code signing, which is what we were talking about earlier. And yeah, apparently it was actually started in 2012 by some folk at Mozilla and the EFF, and oh gosh, I'm forgetting somebody. Let's come back to that if I remember it. Sorry.
I thought it was largely Mozilla.
Yeah, but it was announced on November. I've got this written down somewhere as well. 18th of 2014. So yeah, it's been going for a while. They've got a lot of stuff done. They brought on the Acme protocol, which is the thing that we generally use to do nice automated renewals of these short-term certificates. They've got them trusted by various things, so you can actually use them in OSs that are stock, which is great. It's a great service. And
the tooling around it's fantastic. The tooling around it is really, really fantastic.
It feels like there's a way to generate a certificate on just about every language and platform you can imagine, which is just brilliant.
Man, awesome. And just to kind of wrap everything up here, we've got some upcoming events. Actually, James, you're going. And I'm not going to try to pronounce. Well, I should try to pronounce it. So it's that
one. Sure. And if anyone wants to correct me, please do go ahead. I'm really excited for that. That's next Saturday, November 30th. There's a PowerShell Saturday run by Emrys and Christian, who are two wonderful speakers from various other PowerShell events and folk who are very active in the PowerShell community. It's going to be, I think, 12 speakers, so 2 tracks of 6 talks over the course of the day. If you're local, tickets are free. The tickets are free for anyone. So if you're local, go have a look. I think I even wrote down the website, which was, I should probably put this up on the screen or drop a link in chat. Thank you, Stevie.
Absolutely.
Come along. I'll be talking about ChocOps packages, which is the idea that, there are many things that you can combine DevOps with, and Chocolatey packages are just another one. It'll be fun.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks, Gary. Thanks, James. This is the first season of our Unpacking Software live stream. So please let us know if you think about what you think about this, and if you have any thoughts on the content that we're producing. Is it what you want to see? Is it the right format? Is it the right length? Do you have any ideas about what you'd like to see? You can have your say at ch0.co/stream survey. It's a really short survey. It's actually just one question in your email address. To ensure you're notified of all the great content from Chocolatey Software, be sure to join our community hub on Discord, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, X, Mastodon, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the places. You can find all of those links on our homepage, chocolatey.org, or into the description. Join our next live stream on Twitch or YouTube on Thursday, the 5th of September, where we'll be going back to basics, and we're going to look at, and actually, I didn't fill in the little thingy. So our next back to basics live stream is going to be a surprise, but it's next month in December, on the 5th of December. That's when it's going to be. We hope to see you there. Same time, same bad channel, 4 p.m. UTC. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.